joined back again by General McInerney, Lieutenant General McInerney, Mary Fanning. Wow, I don't know how much of that you guys could hear because I was having to go off the cell phone, but could you guys hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, General McInerney, would you like to comment on what your friend had to say? And thank you for helping set that up.
Well, it is absolutely vital because this is the first time that I believe that General Flynn has been able to speak publicly and in such an environment. And so I want to thank you, Banyan, for setting this up. I know Mary talked to you, and it's very important what you are doing tonight because it is a fast-moving train. And that's why I wanted you to do it, because we are seeing the most unprecedented situation in the history of America. This is the most dangerous situation since the Civil War of keeping this nation united. And why do I say that? In the Civil War, it was just warfare. Today, you and General Flynn talked about cyber warfare. And cyber warfare is hidden. It's mystical. You don't see it coming. It happens. And all of a sudden, 138,000 votes or 150,000 votes, all of a sudden they show up. And because we're looking at computers, we assume they're all legitimate. But in this particular case, they are not legitimate. And because of what Sidney Powell has been doing, who was General Flynn's lawyer, and what she submitted in the state of Georgia and Michigan on Wednesday night, the night before Thanksgiving, we got a document in those lawsuits from a Dr. Navid Kishavaretz-Nia, who is a 59-year-old resident of California who spent 40 years almost in the D.C. metropolitan area as a career intelligence community expert. I won't go into his background very much, but because of this declaration that he made, in which I am quoted and independently confirming, he uses my name, Kirk Wiebe, who was a former NSA official and a good friend of ours in working with Mary and I, and Dennis Montgomery, a former CIA analyst, who was really the creator, inventor of the Hammer and Scorecard capabilities. And that's what we broke, and we broke it on Sunday and Monday before the election, saying that this was going to be an action that will happen, and what transpired did in fact transpire. And Mary was very instrumental in informing me of this information, and all of a sudden, 2.5 days before the voting started on the 3rd of November, this was the 1st of November, I became involved in the voting game. My background is a military analyst. For 16 and a half years, I was on Fox News as a military analyst. I have been the number 3 man in the Air Staff and the Air Force, and so I had a great background. But what made this so easy for me, Brandon, is I run a cloud company, an edge cloud company. I am intimately familiar with this kind of technology and what it's doing, and lived by it in my military days. Everybody remembers when we attacked Tripoli in 1986, and Gaddafi. I was the commander, and they launched from my bases in England. Now, I got that information from the British and other sources, but my whole life has been based on this. And what I'm seeing now is those technologies now are used against the American people. They are trying to seize control of this nation through technology and through cyber warfare. And they have enlisted, to include Fox News, who flipped on us. They have enlisted the mainstream media and the First Amendment to try to get on their side. And General Flynn talked about the censorship, for instance, that Twitter does and determines what President Trump can say. That is ridiculous. It must stop. But because of all these assets, and they are using and misusing the Constitution of the United States, they have put us in a position that our forefathers were not aware of cyber warfare. And so when they set out in the Constitution the process of our election and going through the Electoral College, the voters meeting on 14 December, announcing who the president will be, and then going through in the 20th of November, the inauguration, that was not based upon cyber warfare. And so we have a time clock, and I bring this up to our listeners, we have a time clock, and we have to go through the legal system that was not designed to operate in the cyber world. And so we have many judges turning down and not recognizing what has happened. And so that is the challenge that we are facing. And what my point I want to get across tonight, it doesn't matter if we have locked and sealed this decision process by the 14th of December. The president should not leave office until it is adequately here. We, the American people, will demand that these facts be analyzed and looked at. And I'm going to cover some of those facts that have made it so compelling to me that there is no question about it. And let's start with the vote count distribution in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia are not based on normal system operation. They are caused by fraudulent electronic manipulation of the targeted voting machines. For instance, at 2:30 a.m. on the 4th of November, TV broadcasts reported that Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia have decided to cease vote counting operations and will continue the following day. This unanimous decision to initially and intentionally stop counting by all 5 battleground states is highly unusual. As a matter of fact, it is unprecedented, and it demonstrates prior coordination by election officials in battleground states, those 5 states that General Flynn mentioned. And because of this big flashing light to anybody that understands the voting process, it immediately flagged this, and we start looking at each one of those states because they didn't stop counting. All of a sudden, in Michigan, at 4 o'clock in the morning, 138,000 votes show up. All for, guess who? Biden. He was behind in all those states when they decided to cease voting. And that's where they employed the cyber warfare, the Hammer and Scorecard, plus the Dominion voting machines and the software in them. That's where they put these applications on, like your iPhone, and they got a smooth voting. Now, when the numbers started coming back in those 5 states, they were different numbers, 138,000 in Michigan, 100,000 or 90,000 in Arizona. Now this is notional, a different one in Nevada and Georgia and Pennsylvania. But the important point was they were exactly at the same percentage. This is a mathematical impossibility that this could have happened, and it means an algorithm was used. And this algorithm was designed to stay within the bounds, and when the assembled numbers were put together, it wouldn't be obvious that these numbers of votes were inserted. And so this is a huge flashing red light. And it's important that people understand with this kind of data that we're seeing. Some more numbers that are interesting. Sydney pointed out in Georgia that there are 96,000 absentee votes that were disregarded. In Fulton County, they had a water leak. Pennsylvania, The state of Pennsylvania mailed out 1.8 million votes to their citizens. The state did. These are not absentee ballots. These were these ballots that have no chain of custody. Lo and behold, Brandon, 2.5 million came back. Now, someone had to have a printing press, and we're cranking them out. That is just the pure sniff test that doesn't require a genius to understand. If you mail out 1.5 and 1.8 and get 2.5 million back, something is wrong. Now, Sydney and the president, through I believe General Flynn, have got the Kraken organization, the 305 Military Intelligence Battalion, working with them. Because in all of this, we have not seen any footprints of the DOJ, of the FBI, nor the CIA on the friendly side.
Wait a minute.
It's been on the deep state side.
Let me just stop you there, General, because you just said something very interesting. You just said that who has just opened up the Kraken, and then you just described what the Kraken was. We all know the term because of Sidney Powell using it, but you just said what it is. Can you back up on that?
Yes. Sidney got the term Kraken because that's the nickname of the 305th Military Intelligence Battalion. And that has been her source, along with other sources that Mary and I know about, but we don't want to talk about. And so we're getting the different sources that are relaying this. But the important thing is they identified, now get this, they identified China, Iran, and Russia as being involved in this and manipulating the votes. In addition, the U.S. Army, the U.S. Special Forces Command seized a server farm in Frankfurt, Germany, because they were sending this data from those 5 states or 6 states through the internet to Spain and then into Frankfurt, Germany. Special Operation Forces seized that facility. So they have those servers. And they know all this data they are providing.
Did that go down without incident, by the way? Did that seizure go down without incident?
Well, I've heard it didn't go down without incident. I haven't been able to verify it. I want to be careful in that. It's just coming out. But I understand my initial report is that there were U.S. soldiers killed in that operation. Now, that was a CIA operation. And so that's the very worrisome thing. Did that occur because of what Mary and I and Alan were notifying on the Sunday and the Monday in different networks that this was going to happen, that they were using Hammer and Scorecard, and so they decided to bounce it overseas. So the server farms that Hammer and Scorecard were using in the continental United States couldn't be used. I don't know that. In any case, it makes it more vulnerable because when you start moving that kind of data overseas, other people look at it.
But you are saying that was a CIA facility, and that was where the server was taken from by these special forces, was a CIA facility in Germany.
That's correct. Frankfurt, Germany. Now, we have all this information. General Flynn, of course, people must realize, was the senior military intelligence officer in the U.S. commands of the Defense Intelligence Agency. He's a career intelligence officer, knows this stuff backwards and forwards. And from my experience in the cloud business, this was a trivial operation, relatively speaking. But the magnitude, because so many people, Brandon, were involved, so many people, like General Flynn mentioned, the Democrat person saw this, are coming forward. But what we are doing, we are competing with the Constitution and the the 14 December date for the Electoral College. And why? Because we have this information, and we know that not only did we have the deep state in the executive that President Trump had to fight, we also had it in the legislature where you have Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, all of those people were involved in this. They were involved in the Russian hoax. They were involved in this coup d'etat. But we also had the judiciary. And Judge Sullivan, who was General Flynn's judge, outed himself on this. And so you have the compromise there, and that's why the 305th, the Krakens, were targeted and selected, I believe, because the president could trust them. That's why Chris Miller, who is now the acting Secretary of Defense and a former Special Operations hero, that's why Chris Miller is the Secretary of Defense.
What about his speech that's gone viral of him directing all special operations forces to answer directly to him?
Well, that tells you something, doesn't it?
Yes, it
It
does.
tells you that we had to tighten up because there are people that are part of this conspiracy. This is treason, what we're talking about. Some people may just think, oh, it's just politics. Yeah, all right. So President Obama used it in 2012 to win. He and Biden used it to win Florida. So the Democrats used it during the primaries so Bernie Sanders would lose and Biden would win. You know, that's politics. You know, we've been cheating. No, it's not politics. This is treason. Benedict Arnold gave away West Point, or tried to, in the Revolutionary War. We haven't seen treason of this magnitude ever in our history. And those politicians, those people, like the head of the Chris Krebs, who's the head of the Cyber Warfare Infrastructure Security Agency. He was until he was fired a couple of weeks ago or more by the president because this was a perfect election. He is guilty of treason. He had to be complicit, and people must understand that. You people that have done this are guilty of treason against the United States. And we are going to demand this president, insist this president not leave office until the American people have had a full disclosure of what's going on.
What you're saying,
Now,
General,
if we have
is,
reasonable,
let me just clarify. What you're saying is that President Trump needs to fulfill his oath that he took to defend America against enemies, both foreign and domestic, and he must not let deadlines stop him from fulfilling that oath. Is that what I hear you say?
that is exactly what you heard me say, Brandon.
Now, how high does the treason go?
Constitution. Beg your pardon?
I'm sorry, keep going. I'm sorry.
The president has in his oath to the Constitution to defend the country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we shouldn't let a schedule that we know is so blatantly flawed that anybody can understand that with just the items I've given our listeners tonight. And when you have hundreds of thousands of votes that were falsified, and we know they're falsified. And by the way, I believe those servers are going to show that. And I believe that he is going to show that. It'll probably have to be done at the Supreme Court because you have judges like Sullivan and that are going to try to protect themselves because fingers are going to start pointing to everybody. You know, well, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. You know, they're going to use the Nuremberg trial. Well, the Fuhrer told me to do this. They're going to say, well, President Obama knew I was doing this. He told me to do it. And or Vice President Biden, or Biden was the runner here. He told me to do it. You know, they're going to point fingers. But when you have people that are driving up in cars with carloads of ballots, some not even folded, and they're driving them into these 5 or 6 battleground states, you know, they're going to talk. They don't want to be involved in treason. And so people are going to talk. The magnitude of this and the vote, because I think I think the president won in such an overwhelming vote. Well, I know he did, that they had to do these things. And these were not, they're no skilled in the craftsmanship of what they were trying to do. They were trying to match the ballots with the numbers that they had come up with and determined were needed. And doing that in real time, you had an analog of trying to get ballots, then digital was easy. You can just change the numbers. And I won't give the chap's name, but someone, a Republican on television last night, was saying why it would be so important for the Republicans to get out in Georgia. It doesn't matter how many people we get out in Georgia, Brandon. They'll just up the number. It's a digital number for them. We cannot let them use hammer and scorecard. And in my opinion, we can't have these mail-in ballots in Georgia in time. They should leave the polls open, but they must get a chain of custody. And we can't have this absolute disregard for the laws of the land and by judges and by legislatures. They must get hold of this. There is a path, but I believe that the Democrats are going to think this is politics and they're going to try to shut that down. Well, if they do, then the American people must demand that the president stay in office until this is cleared up, because it's treason, it's a coup d'etat against the government of the United States, and we cannot accept that.
That's three-star General McInerney. Go look up his bio. I don't have time to get into it tonight because we've given it over and over. Three-star General Thomas McInerney. Go look up his bio, folks. He's not a man given to hyperbole. Again, Mary Fanning and Alan Jones broke this story in December of 2015. Thomas McInerney, General McInerney, talked about this in March 2017 on Dave's program. Dave, what's his name again, Mary?
Ganda.
Dave Janda, his show. And then the next day, the Russian hoax comes up by Comey. I guess a smokescreen, right? So they've been on this a long time. And General, I received 3 phone calls from 3 different people tied to the intelligence arena a couple weeks ago, trying to tell me that I was going to be embarrassing myself if I didn't quit talking about this, that it was all conspiracy and fake. And it's now being revealed that those, I guess, were calls to try to get me to stop using our network, our platform, to inform the American people, because now we just are starting to figure out what a lot of these words like Kraken and other things mean. And it is all coming out that there are those inside the intelligence arena that were trying to shut this down. Now I think there are some inside the intelligence arena that are trying now to take the story and control it. Are they not?
Yes, and they are guilty of treason.
Mary, would you care to comment? Mary, you've been quiet. I got to get you in here because you and Alan Jones broke this in December 2015, and wow, you guys deserve some kind of huge literary and research award. But please get in on what you've heard tonight.
We have amazing leaders in this country, and there are none better than General McInerney and General Mike Flynn. And I will tell you that bad actors, both foreign and domestic, use this man in the middle proxies to cover their tracks. There was an attempt not just to steal the election, but to steal America. The Founding Fathers may not have known about cyber warfare, but they certainly recognized tyranny when they saw it. President Trump cannot leave office when we have China and Iran having access to our elections. We cannot let them steal America through their illegal acts of treason and acts of war against this country.
Act of war, and I think that's exactly what it is. And we've got Iran, China, Russia involved in this.
Russia.
Yep. General, we've now got Russia making threats about missiles. We've got them talking about ramming ships. We've got Iran out there talking about retaliation. We see their father of their nuclear program has now been taken out in the last 24 hours or so. We see that Iran is bragging about putting missile launchers on their cargo ships. What does all this mean?
Well, it means a great deal of instability if we let the U.S. government be seized by people that are committing treason and cheating. They knew exactly what they were doing. Look, does everybody think that the pattern for victory for Democrats in the future is no major press conferences with any hard questions? The largest rally he had was 14 people in 14 cars honking horns and staying in the basement. Is that the model for a successful victory for the President of the United States? No, but he knew something. All those people knew that the number was going to come out. People in betting in Las Vegas. There's a great article about that, and the people in the casinos ought to look at those winners because they had inside information, and they are guilty of treason because they didn't tell the proper authorities. Anybody that was complicit, Fox News, in my opinion, some of those people are guilty of treason, whether it's the president, whoever it is, because they flipped and they knew what they were doing and they made those early announcements. And so anybody involved with this is complicit in it if they didn't tell and alert the President of the United States and their proper officials.
Do you believe this goes all the way? Do you believe this goes all the way back up to Nancy Pelosi, to Adam Schiff, to Barack Obama, to Joe Biden?
Yes, it had to. It had to. The way they act, the way they did things, everything they've done, the Russian hoax. Now we've got to know if John Durham, what is the status of John Durham and the Attorney General?
Bill, yeah.
What is the status of their work? What have they done?
General McInerney, before we run out of time, we're going to go about 10 minutes over because that's when our cards will also run out. We want to preserve all of this to get out in duplication to the American people. So we don't want to go where our cards run out. So we'll go about another 8-9 minutes. But September 12, 2018, executive order on imposing certain sanctions in the event of foreign interference in a United States election. How much will this executive order by President Trump play into this, and how so?
Well, I think, and I'm going to ask Mary to also talk about it, but I think it'll play a major role. It tells me, Brandon, that the president knew something was happening and that this was going to come about.
Mary?
And so I think, Mary, you can go into the details.
Go ahead, Mary.
Well, there's an abundance of evidence that the 2020 presidential election was stolen from President Trump on behalf of Joe Biden, with Joe Biden's assistance, because Joe Biden said he had the greatest voter fraud group in history put together. We cannot let this stand. It will be the theft of America. The American people must stand up.
Mary, I have an article here in front of me dated June 7th, 2017. You're in here writing about a program, I think, was it called, help me out here, was it called Turkey or something? Wild Turkey or something?
Wild Turkey are some of the exploits that work off of the Hammer, as well as Scorecard and as well as Medusa. These are exploits that were created. Wild Turkey was not created by Dennis Montgomery, but Medusa and Scorecard worked off of the Hammer.
Well, here you are in 2017 writing about this. Again, you and Alan Jones, your co-author, their book, by the way, can be found on Amazon, The Hammer is the Key to the Coup, which is some of the final words of four-star Admiral Lyons to his friend General McInerney, because they were researching and talking about this. Remember, they Admiral Lyons, 4 stars, General McInerney, 3 stars, did a radio show together in 2017 warning about this, and then this is when things really started breaking open. But again, it's 2015 that Mary Fanning and Alan Jones do all the research and start releasing the information over at theamericanreport.org, right, Mary? It's .org, correct?
It is .org, yes.
Theamericanreport.org. Mary, now we have guys, you know that I got pressured by 3 people tied to the intelligence community to stop doing radio and TV on this. I wouldn't do it because I believe in you and Alan and the general, and I just wasn't going to back down. I'd seen enough information and enough proof. I knew the general's long credibility, and I wasn't going to back down. You know, I got 3 phone calls from people tied to the intelligence arena to quit talking about this kind of stuff. You're going to look stupid and foolish. Now it's all being confirmed. But what's interesting, Mary, is you and I have talked about, I guess, some guy out there writing now who was, I guess, poo-pooing some of this, and now he wants to try to control the narrative and give interviews on it. And I noticed that in one of his interviews, he seems to try to defend the head of the CIA and the head of the FBI. So am I to believe that these people that were poo-pooing this as, hey, don't talk about this, well, now your research has been affirmed over and over, and so now they're going to try to control the narrative, and are they going to try now, some of those same people, to defend the head of the CIA and FBI? Kind of interesting to watch this behavior, is it not? Am I right or wrong in my assumption here?
I think you're exactly correct. This former CIA agent, Larry, it's in the front page mag article. People can read about it. But the fact that he's coming out and saying that Gina had nothing to do with this, nor did Ray, is a highly suspect comment, that he would like to leave these people in place. Anyone who's involved in this and is on the side and standing with treason against this country, regardless of which agency they're with, should think twice before they start attempting to insinuate themselves into this this treasonous activity that's gone on for far too long.
Mary,
and this came.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Directly out of the Obama This came directly out of the Obama administration when John Brennan and James Clapper illegally commandeered the foreign surveillance tool known as the Hammer.
It was designed by Dennis Montgomery in 2003 to keep America safe, as you write, commandeered by them about 2 weeks after Obama was sworn into office, and put on servers, you write, of the FBI under the director, Mueller, correct?
That's correct. According to Dennis Montgomery, Robert Mueller provided the computers for the Hammer.
And of course, they've tried to discredit Dennis Montgomery, because you can see why now. But as we've discussed in past programs, he got 2 immunity deals after being interviewed and recorded. So apparently he didn't lie, or he'd be in jail. He got his immunity deals, kept some of his security clearances, is not in jail. So that should tell us a lot to the people trying to smear the guy. Mary, you believe, I believe, this whole idea that Donald Trump needs to go ahead and concede. I think the one that should be conceding is Joe Biden. I think the American people should rise up en masse. I think conservatives should rise up en masse, tweet, Facebook, email, and begin to demand that Joe Biden concede. What say you?
You cannot award the country to Joe Biden when he has cheated to steal an election. It's really that simple.
Do you believe the American people are going to demand that some of these folks actually face the charges of treason? And how high do you think this could go? Or is this going to be the old Washington game of blaming someone down the lower level?
It's beyond the election. It's beyond the stolen votes. You have to look at Joe Biden and his family. Billions of dollars to his son Hunter, his drug-addled son. Billions of dollars from China and billions from the Ukraine to Hunter Biden. Can you even imagine this in a different day? The fact that the media has remained silent as China and Iran and Russia are buying off our officials should tell you everything you need to know about the Mockingbird media.
Not to mention, Mary, as you report in your excellent report, The Perfect Storm, the Jafar family, the Gulf Tanner family, Dr. Jafar, as you guys report, used to be the head of Saddam Hussein's nuclear program, making the nuclear beach ball, a miniaturized nuclear device. I think he was on the kill list during the war, and then his family and his business get a contract running Port Canaveral in Florida and in Wilmington, Delaware, cargo containers, and yet they're in some kind of business deals back with the 100% Russian-owned exporter of the Club K car that has 4 cruise missile silos that pop up and can deliver cruise missiles, biological weapons, nuclear weapons, and could easily be planted down here in the U.S. as you have translated Russian manuals for Pearl Harbor 2.0 into English that call for a Russian strategy of doing just that. And as you know, live on our show a few years ago, Phil Haney, former Department of Homeland Security whistleblower, revealed right on this show, hey, Brandon, you want another piece of interesting information to go with that? Look at Citgo, owned by Venezuela. They're in financial crisis with massive inflation. Guess who's come in and bought up a big chunk of their company? Russia. Look at all their oil terminals up and down the eastern seaboard. Now Russia can bring in through the oil terminals, the cargo terminals can bring in the Club K cargo missile launching system in this relationship with Dr. Jafar and Gulf Tanner, have cause now to move them into the U.S. and plop them down at oil refineries up and down the East Coast as a Trojan horse, and that's your perfect Pearl Harbor 2.0 that you've been warning about, and Phil Haney dropped that right on the news desk of our show live, and you happen to be watching that night. So there's way more to this than just the election. We're talking about them being inside the wire, and a lot of these people, the Bidens, the Obamas, Hillary, tied to some of these actors, correct?
Well, that's correct. Beyond which the Jafars were put on the Pentagon's blacklist, meant that they were wanted for capture or kill Dr. Jafar Dia Jafar. And he's the nuclear mastermind of Saddam Hussein. And, you know, this is But in order to take back our country, we must take back this election that Donald Trump won fair and square before they started cheating with foreign actors, Russia, China, Iran. That their hand is in here for the theft of this election. That's why the American people must stand up, and that is why President Donald Trump must abide by his oath to protect this country. He cannot step down until this election is fairly, legally settled.
And the reason I bring all that up, Mary, is, as you know, as an intelligence, national security intelligence author and researcher, all of this involves massive national intelligence implications.
Absolutely.
So let me just reiterate real quick. The news tonight, General Flynn calling in. We've just found out from General McInerney, the Kraken is actually a military division. Did you say the 305th, known as the Kraken? That's a military division? That's the Kraken?
No, it's a battalion.
A battalion.
Military intelligence battalion. Brandon, can I say one other thing in closing?
Yes.
Now this is going directly to those that want to seize this country because they have hacked my cell phone. And so everything I say on this particular channel, open channel, they are copying. They mean business. They are deeply into this. And they now know that because of what you have done and what we've done tonight, that they are in even more trouble. And we are coming after you. The American people are going to come after you. And this president won this election, and he is going to be the president for the next 4 years. But we're after you. You will not seize this country because this would be the last free election we ever had. And I'm in agreement with you and Mary that Joe Biden should step down right now.
Joe Biden needs to concede. Folks, these are American heroes. General Flynn, General McInerney, Mary Fanning. I'm sorry we couldn't get another hero on here. Alan Jones, who's written the book with her. These are great Americans that have gone against unimaginable pressure to not talk about this. But here it is, all out in the open now. And isn't it interesting, the alternative media has had to do it tonight. I want to thank all of them for joining us. I want to thank you for joining us. We'll have this post edited in HD and released right away for the American people to disseminate. And again, we do this because of your support at WVWFoundation.com. Thank you for your support. Thank you, General McInerney. Thank you, General Flynn. Thank you, Mary Fanning. And thank you, folks, for watching. Till next time, I'm Brandon House. Take care.